Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Shuffle Bus. This is my round 3 Ashteki tournament game. I'm up against Josh, who's playing Jessa with 3 Nature, 3 Charm, and 4 Illusion. And we are playing Saria with 4 Illusion, 2 Charm, and 4 Ceremonial. Josh is... I don't know much about Josh as a player. We got paired up in round 3. I do know that he was, I think, at this point undefeated, and obviously that does mean something. And yeah, so I go ahead and get my first 5 for this deck, situated with a Resummon, a False Demon, a Seaside Raven, Sleeping Widows, and a 3-Eyed Owl. Josh is not picked his first 5 here yet. We're going to get the game started though, and we'll see how it all plays out. Deck list will be in the comments below, or in the details below, so if you're interested in the Saria deck, be sure to check that out. This is a Master Set only tournament, which just means that we could only play with the cards from the core Master Set. And so I wanted to showcase as many Phoenixborns as possible through this 5-week stress test of the Ashteki system, which means I can cover all but one Phoenixborn. And so I'm still deciding what that last Phoenixborn is going to be. It's a toss-up between Cole and Jessa. So I don't know if I'm going to play Jessa in my last round or if I'm going to play Cole. I haven't decided yet, but obviously both Phoenixborns are very powerful and can do some really great things. So I think it's worth figuring out. With Josh rolling here 8 basics to my 4 basics, he's going to get to choose first. Obviously 8 basics is pretty rough roll for sure. And I don't know what that's going to do overall, but I go ahead and play a Seaside Raven book to threaten the book. I don't think there's any secret in Master Sets. You're probably going to play the loyalty card, so there's not really a lot of reason to hide the Raven. And it also sort of puts pressure on my opponent to have to play a bigger unit first instead of playing maybe something that's a little bit smaller because of Raven's prey ability. So it sort of just sets up my board response better. And then I meditate 1 so that I have the correct number of ceremonial dice to be able to do the Summon Sleeping Widows and the Resummon later in the round. Josh is going to play first here, and he plays a card from hand. I think, if I remember correctly, this is a Call Upon the Realms, which does help, obviously, when you roll 8 basics to fix nearly half of them for an action, and does a nice job of basically sort of buying some time and not having to put something out that would force me to play Raven. I kind of feel like that gives me a free turn here when I went first. And then he drops a Chant of Revenge, and so I don't have to worry about Widows. I was a little concerned we might see Widows. So I just go ahead and Windmill Slam a 3-Eyed Owl here at this point because my opponent hasn't put a book down, so he's not going to put a unit out yet. So I can put a unit out first, and I can put the 3-Eyed Owl out before he can, unless he plays an ally, which is possible. It's very possible that the opening line here, because he is showing the ability to play Hammer Knight and play a Root Armor. Those are things that he could play, but he goes ahead and plays the Blood Archer instead. Blood Archer is really good here, but it's not super great against Owl. Well, I mean, I think that's one thing that's really nice about the Owl is that it can stand in front of a Blood Archer and make the Blood Archer do a couple of turns. And if he does kill the Owl, I can make 2 Widows off of it. So I think we're still sitting in a pretty good and happy place overall. Obviously, Blood Archer and Nature Power die can kill the Owl, and that would trigger the Widows. So Josh is going manual here. I'm not sure. I think he was trying to meditate some cards. So I think he's discarding from the draw pile to meditate. So we've enabled manual mode here for him to make the correction. Okay. I guess he didn't do anything there. So I just make the Owl because I want to force him to start using the Blood Archer and the Nature die. And I can trade 1 die and 1 side action from the Archer to do that. And I think that's completely acceptable way to force the owl to die. And if he doesn't do that to the owl, then I just get to discard 50% of his hand here, and he plays with 4 cards instead of 5. And because of call, he's actually going to play with 3 cards instead of 5 if I can get Owl's Memory Drain to trigger. And so I think you're in a really good place if you can do that with Owl against Jessa. And obviously he can use Jessa ability to ping me for 1. I don't think there's any way you're going to get around Jessa dealing damage through her ability. I think it's really just a question of how do you deal with the other parts and pieces of the deck. So Josh goes ahead and raises the charm die, and that has me a little concerned that one of his 2 cards is a Golden Veil. That's a real issue because I rely so much on trying to like sort of ping damage and pray, and I can't do that with the Raven if it's a GV. Obviously, the Raven can't pray the Blood Archer, so less concerned about that, but I am seeing the opportunity to play Raven if I get my opponent out of cards. And so he plays 1 more card here, which is a Close Combat, and the Close Combat kills the Owl to take 1 point of damage. And I think that's really good. I'm going to respond with Sleeping Widows if I remember correctly here. I'm waiting to see. Yep, there's the opportunity. And so we are going to summon 2 Sleeping Widows here. And there's a couple of things I can do here. Number 1, I can just attack with the Widows directly to Jessa. And if my opponent doesn't block and exhaust the Blood Archer, which would kill the Blood Archer, I just get 4 damage on Jessa, who's got 19 health, so she's got a big health pool. We got to start chipping away at that. And the Blood Archer is in a position where it would die if it blocks. And so one of the benefits to that is that, again, I have the opportunity, sort of when you look at opportunity cost, to force that. So I'm going to choose the attack. I'm actually going to attack directly into the Archer. I think, in hindsight, this is okay. I forced the Jessa to defend 1 time here, but it does open up the Blood Archer to snipe my other Widow, so I think the better course of action is just to go ahead and especially with him only having 1 card left, to just go directly at Jessa for 4 here, and that way if he does Archer away the other Widow, like, they were both exhausted, so I got my value out of both Widows. So I think I should have attacked Jessa directly and let him decide if he was going to block with the Archer and sacrifice an Archer versus taking 4 damage. Because if he doesn't, we're going to end in this board state in a situation where if he exhausts the Archer to attack, he hits me for 4. He spends a basic die for the Widow that dies from the Archer's ping, and so you end up in a scenario where I'm at 5-4 instead of currently 2-1. Not a big difference overall, and I think that again, I just opened up allowing this other Widow to get killed, and so he's still going to be able to, and that's exactly what he does. Is he Archers the other Widow, and then spends a die to make it 2-2, and so now he's still going to end up at 5. He's still going to 5 me and potentially 6 me instead. So I think I actually save a point of damage in a way doing it this way. But here comes an attack. And I think this is probably a pretty aggressive attack to take the Blood Archer and attack for 3. But I think he's worried that I can just drop the Archer. And, that's a problem for him. So now what we have is we have the ability for False Demon to be summoned and ping the Archer away, which I think is a very favorable exchange because we're not even using the Raven at that point. And depending on that last card, if that last card is indeed a Golden Veil, which it's not, we find out it's a Gilder, we're in a really good place here. So we're going to take 2 more damage, most likely because of Gilder, or at least 1 more damage because he's got to summon the Gilder to kill something on my board. And so we can just play the False Demon, and we don't need basically most of the dice right now. So, and then we're going to just go ahead and Nightmare the Blood Archer away, which does trigger Chant and does allow him to spend the Jessa die to ping me for 1. So it's currently 6-2, but we got 2 damage on the board from the False Demon for 4. He's going to make a Gilder here, and the Gilder just gets kind of beaten by the Raven. And so we can just pray the Gilder with Raven, and he'll do 7 to me, but then we've got our own 5 damage, so we'll be a 7-7 at this particular stage. And he's going to go first next round, so the Widow's not going to survive. I fully expect that. But we're still going to have a Demon on board, and most likely a Raven, because, let's be honest, he doesn't have much else to do there. So I'm going to force the Demon attack here, and basically because I want to buy time before I summon the Raven. And so my opponent does wisely play here, right? Like, his wisest play is to not play the Demon, so to pass. And I could choose to pass, but I don't think we want to do that, especially with Resummon still in hand and 5 dice. So by making the Raven and him summoning the Gilder, we can attack the Gilder with Quick Strike, then resummon the Raven, and attack the Phoenixborn directly. One other option here is for us to make the Raven and let him play the Gilder, and then turn around and resummon the Raven right away, because it's sort of the same thing, although it makes really 0 difference how we do that. I could do it a couple of different ways, and both ways essentially net the same result. So again, there is the possibility that, like, we can force a play mistake. And so one way we could force a play mistake, and I don't know if I do this, but we're just looking at the commentary, like talking about it post-game right now, would be to summon the Raven, let him summon a Gilder, attack the Phoenixborn directly, decide whether or not he's just going to take the 3 and leave the Gilder alive for the next round, and then play the Resummon, kill the Gilder through the Prey ability, and get in. And that would actually take him to 10. And I'm not sure I see that play while we're live in the game, just to be fair, but I think that is one thing we could have done here, because we're still not showing the Resummon, and we don't have to show the Resummon, so we can just play Raven, and he's going to have to play a Gilder, or he's going to take the 3 damage. And we ended up with a disconnect, and this is a good note. Like, if you get disconnected from Ashteki, don't leave your game, don't concede your game. What you have to do is refresh your browser, and it will restore the current browser state. So it takes us just a little bit, I think, to get through this. Here we go. So I'm just going to get us back in. So we're now back up and live again. So there's a few different ways to approach this. And obviously, my opponent did a nice job of putting damage on. So yeah, I do summon the Raven here. And I figured that's what I was going to do. I need to keep the Ceremonial and the Illusion die. There's nothing to pray. So I think we end up going to manual mode. And this is something for Dijon I meant to bring up with him and I forgot. So this is a good reminder. Prey needs to have like a cancel targets. And I tried to zoom in and out to see if I could find a button, but there ends up not being a button there. And there just needs to be a button for pass on the Prey ability, because we don't want to Prey. So I think we go to manual mode if I remember correctly. Again, some minor technical difficulties. But when we go into, you can see that once we go to manual, it can cancel the prompt. And so that was how we were able to get around that. So we end the turn. Okay. So opponent goes ahead and summons the Gilder. It's going to shoot the Widow, I'm sure. Yep, because it's going to kill the Widow. And my opponent thinks at this particular juncture, right, if you're just looking at it from this side, like, yeah. Okay, so I do see it. I do go ahead and choose to attack with Raven. Yeah. To the Phoenixborn. And we see if he's going to block with the Gilder. Which makes sense to do, but we at least force the opponent to make a decision that's potentially a bad decision there. It's a rarity, and obviously, your opponent has to decide, okay, like, 1 card in hand and 2 dice, what can they do? And do they know that I have the Resummon? That's a thing. So I go ahead and play the Resummon, and he did end up taking the damage. Okay, so yeah, he ended up not blocking it. And now I don't remember if I actually kill the Gilder instead of doing damage to the Phoenixborn, because I feel like we're even 7-7 here. But, I don't have to. This is the prey. I prey the Gilder, yep. And then it's his go, but no dice, no cards, so he's just going to pass back to me, and I'm going to get 3 more damage in, and we'll end up ending the round 10-7. And I had a couple of different ways to approach this round. I don't know which way it ends up being the best, but I feel like we're in a pretty good place sitting with Raven and False Demon on the board going into round 2. Even though my opponent's going to get to go first, we just have the board presence plus the Resummon. So pretty good place to be overall, because even if he plays like a 3 health unit, like we can just take the Raven in and then resummon play a Raven regular and then resummon it. Like, so we just have like the potential for 3 Ravens in round 2. That's an expensive turn in a way, because it's 3 dice and then it's 5 dice. But I think that's okay. Like 5 dice to make that works out pretty well. Oh, he ultimately said he wanted to block with the Gilder the first time around. So we backed it up and allowed that to happen. So then that would just mean that we go 7-7 by letting the Raven get resummoned. So again, sometimes it's a little wonky, and in the spirit of this tournament, it's a casual tournament, so I'm not really going to be a stickler about things like that. If we were playing in a really competitive environment, obviously, I'd probably say no, but for the purposes of like this tournament, it's just not an issue. Okay. Saria's battlefield's not super big. I think it's 5 if I remember right. It might be 4. I think it's 5 though. So we can play Owl and pressure the board down with an Owl. We could play 2 Owls, because we sort of have the primary win con set up, and then start playing Stormwind Snipers to deal damage directly to the PB, as well as to have a concealed unit. Because Nature's Wrath doesn't exist, and so the only sweepers in this format are Cole with his 100 blades and Mist Typhoon. And because he's not playing Illusion, I don't have to worry about very much of that happening when we talk about playing something like Stormwind Sniper. I just feel like that's a pretty good card that your opponent can't do much with. It's not as good as Fire Archer, but we don't have Fire Archers in this format. So it's kind of this format's version of a Fire Archer. It's expensive, though. Okay, so he goes ahead and plays an Anchornaut. Does 1 point of damage to the Raven, if I remember correctly. Oh, goes to the False Demon. I think that's an interesting choice. I don't think he wants to actively kill my Raven, but I think you kind of have to. So I think you kind of can't leave the Raven just standing there, right? Because I can just attack with it and resummon it, and then get value that way. So the main thing now is obviously, like, is he going to nature the False Demon away? And he can, and that would be 2 dice to remove a False Demon. That's an even exchange, but he spent a card and 2 dice, versus I didn't spend a card because I have the False Demon coming from a book. So we're going to attack. We're going to use up the demon. And this will force the Anchornaut to defend. And that just takes away the Anchornaut as a defense against the Raven. Especially since he didn't kill the False Demon. If he would have killed the False Demon with the nature power, I think my play pattern's a little different, but I don't know what I would have done differently. So just kind of looking at cards in hand, like I can't I can't play all of my illusion cards in hand. And so I think I also go ahead and spend a charm to draw another card. Mainly because, you know, I may get something that's playable off of Ceremonial. I may get, you know, a couple of different things there. So we'll see what happens here. But I'm pretty sure I do the Hearts pull. Okay, so again, tried to block. Apparently, yeah. And so we need to select the card and add one to the anchor knot, which will kill it. Yep. Turns on the chant. I'm pretty sure he's going to spend a Jessa die as well to do 1 point of damage to me. Yep, there's the Jessa die spend. 1 point on Saria. And I think I do go ahead and use the Saria ability here if I'm remembering correctly. I think this is the one time I do use it in this match, but because I'm sort of just looking at my dice spend, and I go ahead and meditate because I know I'm going to need all those dice like that instead, and I can still draw later, but I know if I'm going to play all the illusion cards in my hand as well as summon a new false demon, or play some number of illusion cards in my hand and resummon a false demon, like I'm going to need those dice to be in those configurations, the illusion dice. The illusion power doesn't really matter too much, but and I could have illusion power to take away the nature power and the ceremonial, but again, wouldn't matter because he's just going to be able to gilder me. So I think that, you know, this is fine. At this point, my opponent has used both of his books on board and used 4 dice. I haven't spent any dice yet, right? Like I've been able to keep 5 cards in hand and spend no dice. There's another chant. So these chants are going to get particularly more problematic. But again, we're going to do the same thing we did before, which is attack and force the Gilder to block, and exhaust the Raven. The Gilder won't turn on chant, so I think that's okay. Yeah, again, we're going to go manual. Correct this, because Josh was having some difficulty with blockers. I don't know what was going on his side. Unfortunately, I couldn't see. So, yeah, I can't modify the Phoenixborn. I can modify his Gilder, but I just let him handle it. Oh, excuse me, folks. Sorry. But I feel really good about just our board presence right now. Even though I'm going to have 9 damage on me because the Gilder's going to die, I'm going to actually go to 10. So, like, he's winning at this particular stage in terms of just raw damage, but I feel like I'm in a much better and more prominent position overall. Sitting on Steady Gaze for his big unit, if he plays a big unit this turn, like another Blood Archer, means I can just ignore the Blood Archer and probably win the game. But even if I want to fade it away, I could, but I don't have to even do that right now. I can just hold Fade Away for the next turn. And he actually Final Cries me here as well. So I go to 12. It's getting a little concerning that I'm at 12 damage to his 7 already, because you know, there's a certain amount of like tempo involved in fighting Jessa, but he's got no board and you know, no way to do anything else. I do get a Blood Archer, and I think Blood Archer is probably better than playing a False Demon this round. But or a 3-eyed owl for that matter. So we probably won't cast a 3-eyed owl overall. Now we're sort of in this stage where he's got 3 dice remaining, and doesn't have, and he's got 2 cards in hand. So can't play a Blood... Well, he could play a Blood Archer still on me here, I think. No, he couldn't because he's out of Ceremonial. So really, I'm not sure what he would put out on me at this point in the Master that would be particularly problematic for a Blood Archer to deal with. And so I think, we're looking at quite an acceleration of damage here in this, and then we get to go first in the top of the next round. So whether we resummon the Raven or not, just sort of comes down to what he plays with those last two cards. So again, no tokens on the last chance. So at best, if he plays another unit, another ally like an Anchornaut, the chant would only ping me for 1. He could potentially, in that same scenario, here's deal 1 to the Blood Archer with the nature. Again, I not sure, but we Stormwind Sniper here. Again, just building a board of pressure. So right now I'm showing the same amount of damage as he is, and he meditates up another nature. I think he's wanting to try to kill the Blood Archer, but I'm not sure how he's going to get there. I guess it could be a Sympathy Pain on that last charm die, and that would kill the Blood Archer after it deals damage to Jessa. So I think I get my value out of Blood Archer if that happens. And, I think that's okay. It's not looking like Steady Gaze is going to get played this turn. So we're going to attack. And we're just going to attack with both of these. And now I sort of make his decision. Do you want to nature the Blood Archer, which will recover unless you can kill it this turn, or do you want to hit the Stormwind Sniper? And we also found out if that was a Sympathy Pain, because if it's a Sympathy Pain, then we lose both units, and it sort of makes my play pattern different. So I just play another Stormwind Sniper, and basically what this is going to allow us to do now is hit for another 2, take him to 16, we go top of the round and win off of that, because he's out of dice, so he can't play his cards in hand any longer. So I think we're officially in the win, if you will, because he used that last charm to deal a point of damage. I think, again, end of the day, this match is pretty tight, but we were pretty well in control of it through most of it. So still winning the game in 3 rounds is kind of where you want to be when you've got a more aggressive shell like this. I'm still holding the Steady Gaze. I should have probably changed up. I could have just resummoned Raven instead here, and then hit for 3 instead of hitting for 2. But he went ahead and conceded the match. He knew that there was no coming out of this where I was going to flip the board with all the attack power to finish the game. So that is our round 3 matchup. Saria Raven did good work. The deck and Illusion is very strong. You've seen a recurring theme in almost all my decks I've played in this tournament running Illusion, and that's just because I think Illusion has some of the best control answers for threats in the meta. Steady Gaze is just one of the best cards in the Master Set for fighting big units. Very few things can fight a Root Armored Anchornaut a Root Armored Hammer Knight, and Steady Gaze is very good at dealing with that. I would also argue that Blood Archer is very good at being able to be protected through Root Armor, but clearly the Hammer Knight is the ideal target. And Steady Gaze just says, I don't care about that. You can Golden Veil the Steady Gaze, and I think if you're playing Charm, I think you better have 3 Golden Veils in your deck to help protect your units. But all in all, I think Josh played very well. I don't think there was any major mistakes. He obviously put a lot of damage on me, and that's what Jessa is going to do. But I think you have to turn the corner on Jessa and ultimately out-control her board state so that she's not dealing damage when your units are picked off, but she's having to deal damage off her own units, which means that almost everything in her deck costs 1 more. And I think that makes it hard for Jessa to be really good unless you're playing super efficient units that you can just live with dying. And I mean, those kinds of things are like False Demons and Three-Eyed Owls and Anchornauts and probably even Ironworker is probably a reasonably good card with Jessa. And then you just spend the rest of the time with like Bloodchains and Fear and Choke and some of those kinds of cards to get you there. And then you can also still play like Sleeping Widows so that when one of your units dies, you can still put some aggressive threats on the board, because I don't think you're going to win solely off of burn damage. And I don't think Chant of Revenge is quite good enough to get there overall. But I appreciate Josh's time playing the game. Very well played. And we appreciate that you joined us for this match. If you like this content and you want to see more of it, best thing we can ask you to do is give us a thumbs up on the video that you're enjoying the content. If you feel so inclined to subscribe, we can't thank you enough for that. That's like the biggest thank you possible for us making content is a subscription. And then obviously comment below if you think that I did something different or wrong. I'd love to know what you think I could have done differently that would have maybe made the game a little different. I would love to hear from you as far as what you think Josh needed to do to be able to fight the deck. And definitely just want to continue to advance the game and the community through showing as much gameplay as we can. So we will see you all very soon with round 4. Thanks so much and have a great day. And remember, just stay good to each other.